your voice is a little bit scratchy as well.
It is? Oh, gosh. Hold on just a
There,
second.
there it is.
There we go. It's starting.
Here.
Yep.
Right. Fantastic. Well, first, let me again welcome you all here. Jim, I really appreciate you being on here together. And Jim and I both are really excited about the information we want to share with you this evening. Obviously, it's been a long 3, 4, 5 weeks, just depending on what part of the country you're in. And through this time, I can tell you, Jim, as a financial advisor, having done this, managed money for 21 years now, I don't think I've ever seen a time when there was more confusion, more just a lack of guidance, and candidly, just a lot of concern in and amongst the economy. I went through 2000 and 2001 with 9/11, the Great Recession, obviously, which was much more from a financial cause, and then today. And I will tell you, there's similarities to all of them, but it's really unique. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you that Jim and I, we happen to be on a call having a conversation together, is we really wanted to share with people the hope and the opportunity that is out there. Through every crisis, there is always opportunity, but you have to be willing to think just a little bit differently. And if you look at my screen, one of my favorite quotes is up there from Albert Einstein: "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we used when we created them." And I think that is so true today, Jim, as much as ever before, is that we really, in order to recognize opportunity, we really have to change our thinking. And my mentor and yours, Jim, has always told me that once you truly understand the problem, the solution becomes very, very simple. And so our objective tonight is to share with you a couple of the problems, but also give you some practical advice and some solutions that you can take action on to prepare yourself and your family as we come out of this into a recovery, so that you're prepared to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. So without further ado, let's get going. So again, we've got to understand the problem. And Jim and I were talking, one of the things that I really see a lot is that people are making decisions based on information that may have been accurate 10, 15, 20, even 30 years ago. But what has happened today is that the variables have changed greatly. So maybe we were investing money in retirement plans because of the old adage, hey, you're going to retire in a lower tax bracket. But what we'll find is maybe that's not the case. And if you knew that that wasn't the case, would it change the decisions today? And the answer to that is a lot of times it would. So I like to show this as an example to show you that in this new economy, as we call it, the variables of the economy have changed greatly just from 1990 and 2000. Back in 1990, the prime interest rate was around 10%. Well, today it's as cheap as it's ever been. It's 3.25%. Our population, because of the great baby boomer generation, there are over 95 million Americans aged 55 and older, where just 20 or 30 years ago, it was about 45 million. Jim, people are living longer today. So their money has to last longer for them. The life expectancy in 1990 was 75. Today, for a female, it's 86 years old. For some of us guys that are out there, it's only 83 and a half. So it's a little bit different. That's according to Social Security. You know, in taxes today, the highest income tax bracket today is 36%, where in 1990 it was 31. And Jim, you and I both know that that's projected to go up in 2025 when the Trump tax cuts, when it changes again and they sunset, it's going to resume and go back to the 40% as the top bracket. And then one of the biggest things that concerns me today, Jim, is when we look at how our federal debt has really accelerated. So it's over $23 trillion with a T. And Jim, that's just going to continue to grow. And so for you guys out there, understanding the strain that that puts on us, and I wanted to go through just a simple example just to show you that and to help us understand how our decisions today can impact where we are financially tomorrow. So I want to show you guys just, I call it a family balance sheet. And so walk along with me. There's a family out there in our country today earning $36,000 a year. But when we dug a little deeper, we realized there's a big problem. They're spending $47,000 a year. So right away, that really jumps off the page at you. But when we dig deeper, we realize that they have $230,000 of revolving debt. So we see the problem right now. We're bringing in income that doesn't even meet the expenses we have, but we've got revolving debt. We got a big hole that's over $230,000. And I ask people all the time, how do you solve this problem? What is the one thing you can do that can make a difference? Obviously, we would like to cut spending. But again, even if we cut spending by more than 35%, it would just be breaking even, and we couldn't even make a dent in the debt. And so the number one thing people say, obviously, is file bankruptcy. But let's assume that that's not an option, because I think each and every one of you know exactly who we're talking about here with this example. If I add 12 zeros, you'll see that this was the federal budget in 2019. And I rounded the numbers. We brought in $3.6 trillion of revenue. We spent $4.7 trillion. And of course, we started the year out. This is before all the CARES package and the stimulus and all the things, the recovery that's going on now. We were already $23 trillion in debt as a country. Now, you might be sitting there saying, Justin, why are you telling me all this? I kind of already knew it. And so I tell you this because, again, I go back, we've got to understand the problem before the solution can become clear to us. And the biggest problem here, and Jim, I'm going to ask you this question and put you on the spot. The only way out of this is we got to raise revenue as a country, just like that family. That guy that was making $36,000, he's got to get a second job or get a better job that earns more income. Well, as a country, as a U.S. Treasury, how does the Treasury increase revenue?
They have to increase income. And so what they do is they got to tax us, right?
That's right, man. So the way that the country increases income is through taxation. Yep. And so I usually pause right here and I always ask the question, and I've given talks all across the country to thousands of people, and I've only had one person ever raise their hand and say that they didn't think so. I ask people all the time, based on the knowledge you have now, do you think taxes are going to go up or go down in the future? And the obvious answer is they have to go up, Jim. Right. And this is just a great little picture that shows that the average tax rates over history, the highest marginal rate was over 58%. And today we know we're at 36, and that's going to sunset and go back to 40 if I can round. So we know that taxes are heading up. That one fact alone makes a tremendous impact in what we do with our savings dollars. And there's a gentleman, several of you heard the call, and Jim, I think you were on there a couple of weeks ago, Mr. David Walker, who's the author of the book, Come Back America. And in his book, he made a prediction all the way back in 2010 that if there wasn't significant fiscal reforms in our country, if things didn't change, that taxes could easily double by 2030. I like to tell people, you know, it's one thing, Jim, for you to say it or for me to say it, but who is this guy, David Walker? Well, he happened to be the Comptroller General of the United States for almost 10 years under Clinton as well as Bush. What that means is he was the CPA. He was the accountant for our country. He was the head accountant. And David Walker also served as a trustee of Social Security. He's been involved with the Congressional Budget Office. The man understands the numbers. And when he makes a statement like that, in fact, on our call, he said it could be sooner than 2030 because of all the spending and where we are from an economic standpoint right now. And so that's important for us to understand, because what it does is it makes an impact, Jim, in where we park our money. And so I want to start moving into our wealth has to reside somewhere. And so if you simplify it, there's only three places we can park money. We can park them in taxable accounts. These are things like your savings, your CDs, your money market. Maybe you've got a brokerage account that's not a retirement fund. Or we can store them in tax-deferred vehicles. We call them tax tomorrow. These are your IRAs, your 401ks, real estate. A lot of our retired clients might have annuities. These are things that are taxed in the future. So I want to ask you a question. I just want you to think about it for a second. If you knew you had to pay a tax, because remember, we can't get away from death and taxes. We knew we had to pay a tax. Would we rather pay it in a lower bracket or a higher bracket? So even being from Alabama, I can even get that question right, Jim. What I want to do is I want to pay the tax in the lowest bracket I possibly can. And then there are some opportunities for taxes where they are tax-free. We don't get to say that often. Obviously, Roth IRAs will allow you to do that, but a lot of the clients we work with phase out on those and aren't able to participate. But if you are, great. And obviously, we don't want to park it in your safe. But another area that has become extremely popular in the last few years, as long as they're structured right, are properly designed life insurance contracts. They actually have, I think it's 7702, Jim, in the tax code. They actually have preferential tax treatment as long as they're structured properly. And so if we know we've got to pay a tax and we know that the variables have changed as we look at the new economy, maybe we want to understand that we shouldn't defer every dollar we're investing or saving into accounts that are going to be taxed in the future. Or maybe we shouldn't save every dollar in an account and pay tax on it year in and year out. Just by understanding taxes, we can increase the return and increase the net dollars we have just by understanding how to use tax advantage accounts. And so that's one of the areas I'm looking forward to diving into a little bit as we move forward. So it's hard to make us an expert on everything, Jim. And I tell people all the time, you know, this environment has made people think much more than ever before about understanding the difference between savings and investing. And so if you don't get anything off of this call, I hope this is one of the points that you take away, that there's a really big difference between your savings dollars and your investing dollars. So by definition, savings is money that you can't afford to lose or you don't want to lose because it's earmarked for something specific in the future. A lot of our clients say, I'm saving for my kids' education. I'm saving for a lake house. I'm saving to make a new investment in a business. However, investments by definition are investments by definition are things you can afford to take risk with. And risk is the possibility of loss. So when you think about investing, that's money that you can't afford to lose in the short run. And you've really got to separate the two because they're very, very different. So again, savings is money you can't afford to lose, you don't want to lose. Investing is money you can afford to take risk with. And so what I want to focus on today a little bit more, and Jim will get into how we can utilize it for investments. But what I want to do is focus a little bit more on the savings component. Because today, more than ever, people have realized that savings is an important part of your strategy. Jim, one of the things people tell me all the time is, Justin, what do I do? My portfolio is down 20, 30%, 40% in some cases. What's the first thing I can do? And the first thing that I tell people is you've got to understand what season of life you're in and where you are. You need to have 3 to 5 years of money in a savings vehicle, at least, at minimum. And I would hope you would have a lot more than that. But what that does is it gives you a comfort level that you don't have to sell your investments at the worst possible time. And I tell people this all the time, if you don't have a savings strategy, if you don't have a plan, that's what's going to protect you as we come out of this for the next crisis that we go through financially, whether it's a dot-com bubble like 2000, whether it's a financial crisis, or here we have a healthcare crisis that has totally shut down our economy. Jim, our mentor, Nelson Nash, used to tell us, where money is, opportunity will find you. And so being able to have a savings vehicle allows you to be in a position to weather any storm and take advantage of those opportunities when they come. So I want to look through that for a minute. So I want to move kind of quick because there's a lot of information we want to cover tonight, but I ask people all the time, if you could wave a magic wand and create the perfect savings tool, the ideal place for you to save money like we talked about before, what are the things you would look for? And Jim, it always comes back to 5 or 6 of the same things. Number one, they want a competitive rate of return. So they want to be sure their money's earning and is competitive. The next thing they want, if they in a perfect world, is they would like to be sure that that competitive return is guaranteed. You know, if we could wave a magic wand, that'd be a great thing. But it grows every day, every week, every month, every year. Obviously, the next one you guys can read as easy as I can is they want it to be liquid, where they can get to it when they need it. Again, in a perfect world, they want it to be tax advantaged, creditor protected, so that for a lot of our doctor clients that are on here, or business owners, that you can't get sued and lose it. It's protected from creditors. And then, of course, one of the things that, Jim, I'm excited you're going to talk about, we call it uninterrupted compounding. You may not be familiar with that, but I promise you by the end of the evening tonight, you're going to understand what that means to you and how important it is. So let's get started. The first place I want to talk about is the number one place people are saving or investing money today. And I say that because they're vastly different. We do a lot of work with AT&T employees, and they have a 401k plan that's called the AT&T Savings Plan. But what's interesting about that is there's not one, based on our definitions, there's not one savings vehicle among it. It's truly an investment plan designed for your 401k and your IRA, but it's called the savings plan. And that's why I want to be sure tonight that you understand there really is a difference between the two, and you're going to understand how to use those after this evening is finished. So, Jim, if you just looked at it, this is where $18 trillion in our country today, $18 trillion people have invested or saved in their 401k plan. But based on our criteria that thousands of people have given us, you only get 2 of the 6 that we're looking for. You get a competitive return, hopefully. You would argue that over the last 5 to 6 weeks, but over time, you have an opportunity to get a competitive return. Obviously not guaranteed. In most cases, it's not liquid unless you can qualify between that magic window of 59.5 and now 72. It's obviously not tax-free. Most states it's creditor protected, but you certainly don't get uninterrupted compounding, meaning if you take $1 from there, that dollar is gone and what it could earn for you. So this is interesting to me, Jim, because, and I want you guys to understand this, this is the number one place people are parking money today, yet it checks only 2 of the 6 boxes. Jim, I use this example. I'm gonna see if you'll be a guinea pig for me. Let's assume I've got a business opportunity. I want you and I to be partners, okay? You with me so far?
Yep.
Jim, I want you to put up all the money, okay?
Yep.
You good so far? I want you to take all the risk. I want you to take all the risk. I want you to manage it or pay somebody a fee annually to manage it. And then I'm going to come back in about 20 years and see how good we did, and I'll let you know what percent partner I am. You interested in that business?
I'm not. I like it, Justin, but I'm not interested in that deal.
Here's what's amazing to me. If you really understand it, there's $18 trillion parked in that business right now because not one of us knows what tax bracket we're going to be in when we retire. And we're putting up most of the money. If there's a match, you need to take advantage of it. But I'm talking about those dollars above and beyond that match, or dollars after tax dollars that you're contributing to IRAs. Great wealth accumulation tools, but again, the variables have changed. The dynamics have changed. Back in the 90s and 2000s, that made a lot of sense because tax brackets were going down. Interest rates were much higher. It was a totally different economy than it is today. Let's go to the next one. CDs, savings accounts. Again, I'm going to move quickly. Obviously not a competitive return, but they are guaranteed by FDIC and they are liquid where you can get to them. Jim, there's $10 trillion parked in savings accounts and CDs and money markets today. Again, not as efficient of a place, as maybe we would want. Only 2 of the 6. Let's move to bonds or mutual funds or non-qualified type of accounts. So again, of those perfect 6 that most everybody wants, Again, we're only 2 of the 6. We got a competitive return and we've got liquidity. So, Jim, I want to pause here for a second because what I think is so key, and the point that I want you to take away is, where is our storehouse? Jim, our mentor, Nelson Nash, who you and I both know, he's the author of this book. I'm going to hold it up right quick. It's called Becoming Your Own Banker. I'd love it for everybody out there that's on tonight with us to copy of that book. It's really a workbook for a 10-hour study that Nelson would do live in person. Some of you guys on here have heard him. I had the privilege of probably hearing 20 of those. But this was his workbook, and one of the things he talks about in here is understanding where you store money. Where's your storehouse? And before we go into the next slide, Jim, it really reminds me of a great story from the Bible. If you haven't seen it, guys, I'd highly recommend reading it. Starts in Genesis around chapter 41 and goes through chapter 47. But it's about Joseph and how God came to him and said, right now times are good. Okay, things are going well. There's an abundance, but there's going to come a time when there's a famine. So I want you to store up in the storehouses. I want you to store the grain and the wheat. Store up for the famine. And when you do, you're going to have immense opportunities. And sure enough, Joseph was able to do that. And what you'll find out through that is people came to him and to his storehouse, just like Nelson said, where there's money, there's going to be opportunities. People came to his storehouse, and he had the opportunity to make tremendous financial gain for himself and his country because he had the right storehouse and he understood the economics of what was going on in Egypt at the time. And that's what Nelson told us when we talk about having the ideal storehouse place to store our wealth. When structured properly, and Jim's going to get into this, we have a savings tool that can give us a competitive rate of return. However, Jim, what does it say on the second page of your properly designed life insurance contract that you have?
Tells me the guarantees that my policy is going to grow every single day.
So it's hard for guys like Jim and that word guarantee, but there are actual contracts that give you guaranteed growth inside of your contracts when they're structured properly. Number 2, the second line underneath that tells you that they're liquid. You can access that money. You're number 1 in the food chain. You have access to your capital or the insurance company's capital. And Jim's going to walk through an example of that. And that's really, really important because it opens up the door for those opportunities. By the way, when structured properly, your money grows tax-free. You can look it up in 7702 in the IRS code. It is creditor protected. And the thing that is really important to me that I want you to remember is the uninterrupted compounding that comes with a properly structured life insurance contract. It's based on the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. It's known as the infinite banking concept. And it has made a big difference for me and my family, as well as Jim's. I've been practicing this for our savings component now for over 12 years. And we've utilized it in many different ways. And I actually just found this slide yesterday, and I wanted to share with you about why I've chosen to utilize this for our savings tool. So this is a graph for you, and what you can see on here is the little yellow-orange line is the bond index over the last 20 years that we've been talking about. And I think that blue line is the stock market index. And what you can see is where we are today is they're almost dead even. And my point in telling you that is what I've chosen to do is partner with insurance companies for the bond portion of my portfolio, for the safe money portion of my portfolio, because insurance companies buy more bonds than anybody in the world. They're the best at it, and they get discounts that you and I as individuals can't go out and get. So I've chosen to go in partnership with these mutual strong insurance companies that we talked about to create a system that allows me to grow money in a tax advantage way, that's guaranteed, that's liquid where I can utilize it. The reason that I want to utilize it is because it's going to create opportunities. And again, I go back, it's not just Jim and I saying this, but here's David Walker and a quote that he gave us just a few weeks ago, where he says for his family, he has chosen to utilize a significant portion of his retirement savings, keyword, to purchase products from financially strong insurance companies. Why? because he knows that the variables have changed from where they were 20 years ago and 30 years ago. And by understanding that, it gives you an opportunity to create wealth. Just like Ray Kroc did with McDonald's. If you ever read the book or go see the movie, you'll see he had a properly structured life insurance policy that he utilized to get McDonald's up and off the ground. No different than Walt Disney, the exact same thing. He could not get anyone to invest in his vision, so he utilized the cash value from his life insurance contracts to build Disneyland and turned into what it's turned into today. So Jim, I want to pause here and just turn it over to you, because the thing that's most exciting to me is we've talked about how to save money and how that helps us as we come out of a recession, as we come out of a crisis. But what I want to do is turn it over to you to show people how it can open up the doors of opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin. Great job. And, you know, as I'm sitting there listening to you talk about some of the things that Nelson taught us, there's a lot going on out there, especially on the internet, where people are teaching infinite banking, not the way that Nelson taught us. And, you know, I think it's great to be on here with a bunch of people and show you really the way Nelson intended infinite banking to work, and the way that he showed us how it should work. And, you know, I always like to start here, Justin, is we've all played this game, Monopoly, right? And maybe we're playing games right now because, you know, we're under quarantine or whatever, but I'm going to show you how to win every Monopoly game that you ever play against people that don't know how to play. Because when most people play, Justin, they look at this. They look at the dollars on the side of the board. We look around, and whoever's got the most money on the side of the board, we think, wow, that they're winning. But there's only one rule of Monopoly that matters, and that rule is 4 houses equal a hotel. And it doesn't matter if I have this side of the board or this corner or this side or this side. Is if I get hotels on my properties, Justin, I'm going to bankrupt all the other players, take all their properties. I'm going to win, right? And you ever feel like, Justin, that there are people out there in the real world that are playing the game of money, and they're playing so well, you don't even realize they're playing? Ever feel like that?
Yeah. Exactly.
So what most people are trying to do is something like this, is they think that the goal is to climb the mountain, right? To ascend the mountain. Now, excuse me, Justin. Justin, if you're going to go climb a mountain, is the goal to get to the top of the mountain?
That's the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, you want to ascend it and get to the peak.
That's right. Well, you know, and if you ask anybody who was the first person to climb Mount Everest, they always say Sir Edmund Hillary, right? But Sir Edmund Hillary didn't climb Mount Everest. It was just Edmund Hillary. He wasn't knighted until he got down safely, right? So, but 30 years before that, there was 2 other people that made it to the top. It's kind of it's debatable whether they made it to the top, but a lot of people believe they made it to the top and they froze on the way down. And you never hear of those people. I think his name was George Mallory. You don't hear about George Mallory, and it's not Sir George Mallory, because he didn't make it down safely. So when we think about accumulating money over our lifetime in those vehicles that you mentioned earlier that are government controlled, right, is we think that we're going to get to this top, and then we're going to have enough money that we're going to live on it the rest of our lives until we get down here and we die, and we never ran out of money. But there's a lot of potential problems. If I'm in retirement right now, Justin, after the last 5 or 6 weeks, I'm nervous. Do I have enough money, right? So there's a lot of things like distribution rates. A lot of people think, you know, back in the 80s, we thought, in the 90s, Justin, we thought that 10% was a good distribution rate. Now, it changes a lot, because today, distribution rates, if you use the Monte Carlo method, are really between 3 and 4%. How about sequence of returns? What if you retired in February of this year? Are you in trouble? Yeah, you got really unlucky on sequence of returns. How about bad advice? You ever heard of a financial planner giving somebody bad advice? Or just being wrong or just not knowing what they're doing? That never happens, right? So how a government changes, you brought up a great one. Taxes are going to change. What if I'm just distributing my 401k right now and I think, hey, I'm going to be in the 36% tax bracket forever? Well, we can show through history that that's probably not going to happen. Here's my point, is that with K2 and Mount Everest, 56% of the people that die climbing those mountains die on the way down. So this is not really the goal. To me, if I had my assets working for me, once I got to the quote top of the mountain, I would just want to keep going up. I would just want to keep on. I wouldn't want to have that scarcity mindset of distribution. I just want to have that abundant mindset of more assets that are going to give me more income. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. But we have to realize where we are, okay? There are really 4 types of people. So which one are you? You could be the employee, right? And you exchange your time for income. You can either work for wages or fixed salary or, or both. But typically, now, unless you're really one of those lucky employees that's going to get a buyout or something, or stock options or whatever it is, you're never going to get really wealthy as an employee. So then, like you said, we have a lot of doctors on the call, business owners, but they're really owned by the business, right? There's a high startup cost. I mean, think about how much debt doctors go into. Could go to school for 17 years or so, depending on your specialty. And, there's a high rate of failure if you're just going to go start your own business with no blueprint or plan. Your income's capped by your hours. You don't own the business owns you. And you're never really going to be truly wealthy or free. I always like to say, and I know you like to say this, and maybe I got it from you, Justin, is money gives you choices, choices give you freedom. That's really why we want to be wealthy, is so that we can have freedom to do what we want to do when we want to do it. And that's what a true business owner, where they have plugins to an existing system and they get cash flow and the employees generate their income for the owner, has unlimited income potential and a chance for true freedom. And then the 4th quadrant, which is the investor, right? They're making money while they sleep. Now, one thing is, I hope everybody on this phone call has an infinite banking insurance policy, or specifically designed and properly designed insurance contract, because you haven't lost $1 in the last 5 or 6 weeks in these contracts. I sleep great at night knowing my policies are growing every night, Justin. I know you do as well. But this is unlimited income potential and a chance for true freedom. Now, which one are you right now, and which one do you want to be? Because look, if I'm an orthopedic surgeon and I'm self-employed, I'm not going to stop being an orthopedic surgeon, but I sure want to be an investor. And yeah, show me an opportunity to be a business owner, and I want to do that as well, right? The poor, the people, and really it's the people working for their money, reside on this side, and the rich, where their money is working for them, they reside on the right side of the quadrant. So we all want to be over here. We all just want our money working for us, and we don't have to go to work and work for our money, and we get to do what we want to do when we want to do it. And for the guys out there, when I say guys, by the way, I mean men or women that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s. I mean, retirement is not the goal, right? Financial freedom is the goal. And I don't think, Justin, the young people that I'm working with these days, they see that. They know that's not the goal. They know it's financial freedom. Okay, so how can the average person take advantage of B and I on that side of the quadrant and create personal wealth really rapidly without spending a fortune, without the high risk of failure, like you said, on the investment side, and have fun in the process? Well, we really truly believe it's through infinite banking. And to do infinite banking, you really have to think. Now, why do I say that? I actually, we take that from our mentor, Nelson Nash, who would say, it's all about how you think. But then we found this quote that says 5% of the people think, 10% think they think, Justin, and the other 85% would rather die than think. Now, I don't understand that, honestly, because I think that the only way to make this work is to think differently from the herd and break away, kind of like that podcast. No, I'm just kidding. So let's kind of bring all this together. Okay, now, for the guys out there that are doing infinite banking, this might be remedial or basic, but just bear with me, because I'm gonna put a spin on this, Justin. Now, we're gonna go get a policy, right, from a mutual insurance company. Now, the reason a mutual insurance company is because there's really two types of insurance company. There's a stock company that's owned by shareholders, and there's a mutual company which is owned by policyholders. Both of them are required by law to distribute the profits of the business to the owners. So we want to be an owner, right? So we have this policy, and we have cash value in it. By the way, that cash value is growing every day uninterrupted, and that's what that blue line to the left is, okay? It's growing every day. Guaranteed, Justin, just like the words you used, which is what we're looking for, guaranteed. Now, because we own this insurance company, our insurance policy gives us a contractual right to get an interest-only loan from the insurance company. Okay? Their money. Remember, our money stays in here and grows uninterrupted. It never leaves. And you want to act like your own banker, right? Now, Justin, 95% of licensed insurance people don't know this next thing. When you take a loan, your money doesn't go anywhere. They put a lien on your cash value, and every dollar that they put a lien, they give you one of their dollars. Sounds fair, right? So remember, my money's in here growing every single day, uninterrupted. And by the way, am I paying tax on that growth? I'm not paying tax on the growth. It's growing tax-free, okay? Now I'm going to take the insurance company's dollars, and I'm going to buy some real estate, okay? Now this real estate, now remember, I'm still earning an income that I was earning to fund this insurance policy, but this is going to earn some money. So I'm going to assume that I don't need all of that money or any of it to live off of. I'm going to flow it back to the insurance company, which, by the way, it's an interest-only loan, so I don't have to do that. It's unstructured. Now, let me ask you a question, Justin. This is the way I look at that loan. If I would loan you $100 million today, and your only obligation was that you had to pay me $5 million of interest in 1 year from today, would you take the loan?
Twice.
Twice, that's right.
Yes.
All right, so play along for a minute. Let's say that you made me that same deal, okay? And by the way, I'm open to it as well if you're offering. You're going to loan me $100 million. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to go leverage the bank's money, and I'm going to go buy $500 million worth of real estate. Okay? Now, let's just assume that I can net, after debt load, everything else, I'm going to net 5% on my real estate, my $500,000 of real estate, after my debt load. So I meet with you a year from today, and by the way, I'm going to buy lunch, okay? And I'm going to write you a check for $5 million. Now, I got $20 million that just went into my bank account, right? We're still good. And you're going to say, hey, do you want to pay down some of that principal? And I said, no, I think I'm good. right? That's what you can do, the same thing that you're going to be doing with the insurance contract. Because what's going to happen is this money's going to flow back to the insurance company. It's going to reduce your lien, increase your net cash value that you have available. So what are you going to do, Justin? You're going to do it again, right?
Do it again. Do it again.
Yeah, I'm going to take another loan. I'm going to buy some more real estate. I'm going to buy maybe a business. I'm going to buy whatever it is. Now, normally when somebody shows you infinite banking, and this is really great and important and valuable, is they show you how to pay for your cars or your vacations or, major purchases. And that's all great. I use my infinite banking system for that too. But what I want to talk about is as we start to get this money flowing back, this money gets all these different assets flow back, flow back, flow back. We get all this cash flow. If I'm going out and buying assets, Justin, do I want that money to flow back to my bank or somebody else's bank? My bank, because
That's
what's the
full
bank?
idea. Absolutely.
That's right. So what would the commercial bank do with that money when they got it back? They'd loan it out again.
In motion.
That's right. They'd put it in motion and they create velocity of money, right? Excuse me. So as this money goes back and this whole thing goes faster and faster and faster, this little play, we make more money and more money and more money. Now, what's going to happen, Justin, is this policy is going to get full of cash and it's not going to hold anymore. And I'm going to have to go out and I'm going to have to get more policies and more policies and more policies. And Nelson at one time had 49 policies is the number that I remember him telling me. And 49 policies. And I got up at Think Tank this February and I asked, and there were people in the room that had over 40 or 50 policies. At least a couple, right? A lot of people that had over 5 or 10 policies. Now, this isn't because your advisor wants to sell you more life insurance, but think about this. If I'm using this for a business like real estate, okay, which is a great place to put your money, this interest, Justin, I know you can't give tax advice, but that's probably going to be deductible, right? And
good chance.
It's a good chance. And if your CPA says it's not deductible, then give us a call. We'll find you another CPA. No, I'm just kidding. But this is, if you're borrowing the insurance company's money. Okay. Now, so the money that you're paying is deductible and the money you're earning is tax-free. How many things in your life, Justin, do you have like that?
Yeah.
Not,
and it goes back, Jim, to understanding what the problem was so you could recognize the solution, having the right storehouse, having the right tool, and then using that to build assets, not leaving it stagnant.
Absolutely. And, like you said, a lot of business owners don't want to buy instruments. They want to buy assets. They understand assets. They understand that their business, et cetera. So now, Justin, normally I would have to choose one of these two sides of this ledger. If this was my savings account, like you said earlier, I'd have to decide, do I want my savings account or do I want this real estate? And I have to part with my money or my 401k or my IRA. I mean, forget about whether I have to pay penalties and everything else. But if I have an opportunity, I have to decide, I want this or I want to keep the money in the account that it's in. Justin, with infinite banking, we get both. We get both sides of the ledger. Our money grows in a tax-sheltered policy, right? Growing tax-free, potentially taking all that money out tax-free, right? And I get all of these assets. I get both. Now, where else can I do that? Okay, so does that make sense, Justin? Anything to add there?
Yeah, no, here's one thing that I definitely want to add. Jim, I'm really bad when I read a book that I want to skip to the end and see that last chapter. And
Yeah,
there's been a lot of buildup, but I want everybody out there to really pay attention, because what we're talking about here is looking for opportunities as we come out of this crisis. What we've been laying the stage for is to how to get you in position to take full advantage of those opportunities. And so the next thing we're going to look at is, how does this work for me? Jim showed you how to build assets, and I showed you how to have the right tool to allow you to leverage so you can build assets and create wealth. And so now we're going to look at a couple of examples that is really going to show you where the rubber hits the road, how you can take action and utilize your policies to create investments that are correlated or defined by the stock market. And that's what's important.
absolutely. So let's look at this now. You know, this isn't our opinion. We're just, and a lot of these things, we're just using math. I love the numbers that Justin put out there on that family that happens to be all of us as the United States, right? And it's just numbers. It's not our opinion, and we're not using some fancy software to try to show you something or convince you of something. This is just math. And so I'm just going to use a real estate calculator. Okay. Now this is just an example. Okay. It's just meant for demonstration purposes. And I'm not going to put in here all the expenses. This is a great little calculator, and there's a lot of these on the internet that you can get for free. But I'm not going to put the tax information and everything else in there, because all that's going to be the same. I'm just going to compare the ways that I could buy this property. Okay. And by the way, this is a great property. You guys would all want to buy it. Okay. It's $200,000. That's the value. We're going to pay $200,000, and we're going to have $5,000 of closing costs. So our total price, purchase price, $205. And it's a commercial piece of property, and it's going to produce $2,500 a month of cash flow. All right, so for our analysis, we're going to look at 10 years, and we're going to assume, Justin, that this appreciates at 3% per year. And so we got here's our down payment. We paid cash, $205. Here's our cash flow, right? Our net cash flow. And here's the future value, which is also our net cash out. And here's our rate of return. So if we could buy that property over the next 10 years, our ROR, rate of return, is going to be 16.12%. But this isn't normally how people go out and buy properties. I mean, some people do, okay? But most people, they leverage the bank's money, and they go get a first mortgage. Now, I'm going to assume that this is 80% loan to value, okay? And it's not a mortgage, it's a commercial loan, so it's for 20 years, not 30. And I'm going to assume it's 5% fixed. Here's my payment, okay? So shows my mortgage payment up here. I'm still looking at the 10 years, still 3%, but I got 45 grand in it now. And my net monthly cash flow goes down from 2,500 to 1,444. Future value is the same, but I still owe almost 100 grand on it. So my cash out is only 170. But look what happened to my ROR. Now, why? Well, because I have less money in it. I'm leveraging the bank's money, right? Okay, so then, Justin, for you and me, and we've done this a bunch of times, we're going to use the insurance company's money as well. So the way to use that on this calculator is just to add a second mortgage. Here's 40 grand for the down payment. Now, Nelson taught us to be honest bankers, to pay ourselves back what the bank would require us to pay. So we're going to do the same 5%, 240 months. Here's my payment, $264 per month. So all I do is I add that to my mortgage payments, and I'm looking at 10 years, still I'm looking at 3%. But now my monthly cash flow went down to $1,180. And my loan is higher than it was. It was at 100, a little bit under 100. Now I'm almost 125. So my net cash out, it went down to 145. But I only have $5,000 in this, Justin. And so my ROR went to 370%. That's the power of leveraging the insurance company's money. Now, Justin, could I have borrowed that $5,000 if I had it in cash value in my policy?
Yeah, it could have been 45 instead of 40. Certainly.
Then what would my rate of return be?
Well, since you had no money in it, it would basically be infinite.
That's right. And so that's, again, one of the reasons that I love the infinite banking concept is because this is infinite. My return is infinite. So think about this for a second. My policy grew too, didn't it? Now, this is my policy, my personal policy, and it's a seasoned policy. It's been fully capitalized. It's growing, okay? From the first year, I had $40,000 in there that I used for the property. It grew at a 5% growth rate for 10 years. So I had, at the end of that, $65,880. Okay? So I got both. I got the $200,000. I got the property, right? Here's my bank loan. Here's my insurance loan, which was interest only, okay? So I had no money in it other than all I did was pay the interest on the $40,000. And that's going to be paid from cash flow, right? So I have no cash in. I cashed out 145. My rate of return is infinite. My policy grew to 65,000. So my total is 211,308. You get both. So Justin, you wanted to talk about, any questions on that, Justin?
No, Jim, I think that is that's a phenomenal example, because what you're showing here, again, you go back to your chart, you're showing how you can move from one quadrant to the other, how you can take your saving and put it in the right vehicle, the right storehouse, just like we talked about for the book of Genesis, and then create opportunity. So you could have pulled it all out and bought one house, but here's what Jim is talking about. Now, if you want to truly create wealth and have a plan, you now have a strategy in a way to take savings dollars without giving up the safety, without giving up the interest you would earn on it, without paying any taxes on it, and leverage that into multiple assets. And again, these could be liabilities that you're paying down if that's something you want to do. Have that money flowing back to you and your system instead of another bank. This could be businesses. We have clients that use it and buy businesses. Jim's got a great example where he's done that through his policy. Being able to access cash quickly allowed him to be able to invest in a business that returned cash flow to him. And then I've got an example, Jim, that I thought was pretty simple. If we could, let's go to the next slide just for a second. So I had a client that had built up a good amount of cash value in his policy, structured the right way. And he came to me, he's in a service business. He said, Justin, I'm not really interested in real estate. It's not something I want to do. I'm trying to pay off debt. Uh-oh, the slide's getting really big. Here we go.
I don't know why it's doing that. All right.
I don't know. I guess it's time for the big finish, huh?
All right, you
guys can see this. Here's what happened.
Yeah.
What's that?
You tell them what happened, and then I'll go to the slide so we can all see it before it gets too big.
So what we got to is his business leased space. It was in downtown Birmingham. He was paying $5,000 a month in rent. So I gave him that. I said, why don't you go to your landlord and tell him you're going to pay your entire year's rent up front, cash up front, and see what kind of discount he'll give you. And so he negotiated, and at first the landlord said, well, I'll give you a month and a half free, which I think would have been a tremendous opportunity. But I said, keep pressing. He ended up getting 2 months free if he would pay all of his rent up front. So what he did is he got a policy from I got a loan from the insurance company against his policy for $50,000. He wrote the landlord a check, and then he had his business repay that to him just like it was doing before. So the business didn't change cash flow whatsoever. So they paid him $5,000 a month back to his pocket. And what you'll see is that was a 20%. If you annualize that, that's like getting a 20% rate of return. Everybody follow me? He paid $50,000 to the landlord, paid himself back 60, which was his normal rent, and he kept the 20% in his pocket. And so what that is that is a way of getting creative. Now, Jim, here's what I like to say. Did he pay any tax on the policy gains? No. Did he take any risk whatsoever? Did he change the cash flow of his business whatsoever?
No.
In fact, candidly, I could argue with you that he lowered his risk, because if they go through a healthcare crisis, a COVID-19, who does he now owe the rent to? To the landlord or to himself?
That's right.
So if cash flow is an issue, he can say, hey, I'm going to take 3 months off until we come out of quarantine, until my business revenue gets back up. Well, the landlord, he's not going to have to get permission from the landlord. He's not going to have to take a chance that they don't renew his lease. He has total control. And guys, that's the thing that I want to kind of end with before I toss it back to Jim. If there's one thing that you take away from today, the most important, I think, characteristic that you want coming out of a crisis is control. Write that word down. You want control. You want control of your savings. You want control of your money. You want control of your situation. The way you minimize risk is controlling it. And what Nelson taught us in this book, and I'm going to hold it up one more time for everybody to see. If you haven't gotten this book, you need to get with the person that invited you, and they can get you a copy of that. You need to read this. You need to go through it. You need to spend some time and ask questions. I know we didn't make an expert out of you tonight, but what I hope we did is give you a couple of ideas that you can research. You can get on the phone with Jim, on the phone with whoever invited you, and you can ask some questions and get out of your comfort zone, as John Maxwell says, and get to the creative zone. Let's get creative in how to protect our wealth and build our wealth. Jim, last closing thoughts?
Yeah, no, those are great thoughts, and I agree. Whoever controls the money makes the money. And you think about that, and you mentioned that I've used this to buy into, start 11 businesses. And, I think about right now all of the employees' jobs that we've saved. In, one of the businesses that we bought, I think there was 58 jobs in the company that owned it. They were going to shut the business down. And saving 58 jobs in a community, and then this is a pretty small community in Nebraska. And, that's it. When you say, how do you move to that right side of the quadrants and have fun? I don't know about you, but if you can save 58 jobs, that's fun, right? That's being a service in your community. And it's not just about how do I make the most money? And I hope that I hope that the market goes up, and I hope that I don't make any mistakes. And, Justin, you say it and I say it, hope's not a strategy. It's not a very good one, right? And this is a way, it's a participatory sport though, because you got to study this. You got to read books. You got to talk to your coach. That's what Nowlin and Associates is Nowlin Wealth Management and Create Tailwind. That's what we're all about, is coaching you and showing you how to do this and walking you through it step by step by step for you to take control of your financial future and get from the left side of the quadrants to the right side. That's what I got, Justin. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think, guys, we've been an hour. We want to be a good steward of your time. I want to thank you for joining us. Again, I want to encourage you, get with the person that invited you, get your questions answered. But more important than anything, take action. Understand what the problem is. Understand there are solutions. Get creative and take action. And if you do that, you're going to be successful identifying these opportunities as you come out of the crisis. Welcome, everybody. Guys, have a good night. Jim, thank you, and really enjoyed being with you.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. I really enjoyed it. Look forward to doing more of these and sharing more about infinite banking, what we learned from Nelson. And everybody be safe and take care of your families. And we, on the other side of this, there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and we're here to help you and show you how to take advantage of those opportunities. And we've got lots of professionals in our network that can help as well. So just know, stay strong, hang in there, and we'll all get through this. Have a good night.
Excellent. Good night.